Hello everyone, and welcome to Bxb'S Bonus Babble, episode 10, in which, by myself, usually I talk about video games. But it is not without precedent, for we did many of these over E3, and Joel has returned to do a special episode of Bonus Babble with me at 10 o'clock, nearly, on a Sunday night, after watching Xbox's Gamescom thing, which we will talk about now. Let's just talk about that now. Let's just do it. Let's not beat around the bush. That's why we're here. That's why Joel has come. Probably he's put some clothes on. He was probably in the nude, I'm guessing, just watching Xbox.
It's down, yeah, absolutely.
That's how I roll. I always have a top on, but I take my trousers off. That's and your pants. That's the way we do things at BXB. That's how it is. Right. So yeah, I made some notes on my phone as it went because I didn't live tweet it because I was right. It wouldn't have been worth it. So there were some games. Let's talk about some of the actual kind of announcement type things that came out of this that we didn't already know about. Jurassic Park Evolutions from Frontier, the guys behind Planet Coaster. Yeah, that's right, Planet Coaster, Elite, and I think most obviously when you saw that video, Zoo Tycoon. Did you catch that bit? Jurassic Park Evolutions.
No, I didn't. When I tuned in, literally, so Mick, we were just sort of talking about it. Mixer was a bit difficult today. I tried to watch it on Mixer, and after tuning in, it took at least 5 to 7 minutes, I'd say, before video started. By the time, which eventually,
that's terrible.
And then managed to switch back to Mixer once it had started. But yeah, the literal bit I saw was the very closing part of the Jurassic World Evolution trailer. So you're going to have to tell me about it.
No, you didn't miss anything. It was only like 30 seconds long. It was CGI. It wasn't in game, and it's basically a Jurassic Park simulator. Build your Jurassic Park the way you want to build it. And these guys at Frontier obviously have got pedigree with that. And they're based in my town where I am, which is cool, and where you are, which is lovely. And I always like supporting them, and I know a bunch of them, as I think you do, and they're a really nice group of people. And yeah, I think that's perfect fit. I think Jurassic Park Genesis, I want to say, was the last time they did a Jurassic Park build a park game, and I think that might have been like PlayStation 1. I want to possibly say that was on. So we're going back a while. I'm totally up for that again. I really enjoy that sort of concept. It's my jam.
I think the bread and butter of this game is going to be the disasters, right? If they have such a thing in the game.
Yeah, there's like
this is what you want, right?
The trailer's all about like the T-Rex escaping and how you have to capture it and maintain that and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, it looks fun, doesn't it? But yeah, designing your own park, what attractions you want, breeding. Like maybe you're going to be able to do stuff with like genetics and like create your own dinosaurs and all kinds of shit like that. What young lad growing up in the 90s or the 80s when fucking dinosaurs was the hottest shit ever doesn't dreamt of doing that, Joel. I am well up for that. That sounds cool.
Yeah. I can imagine all the kind of, but this is going to bring in different levels of park management, hopefully. It won't be so easy as the dinosaurs are going to have to sort of manage. You're going to have a goat farm somewhere to keep all those goats and, cows and things for the T-Rex and the Velociraptor. There's going to be this whole sort of minor mini management game to it to keep your whole park running. Are they going to do the things like in theme park where you can choose how much ice you had in the drinks and how much salt you put in the burgers?
I really hope so.
Dinosaur burgers and things. Maybe you can... Oh, maybe you can come up with like a proper gourmet menu here.
What if you get really like hard up on resources? Can you feed dinosaurs to other dinosaurs or their own type of dinosaurs? Like you've got T-Rex burgers and you're feeding them to the T-Rex. That's going to make a pissed off T-Rex.
Yeah, maybe you have to be careful what animals you put in the paddocks together because they'll maybe things. Yeah.
Oh, you've got to do that. They've got to do that. I think there's loads of options there for stuff. We then a bit further on into the show got a really. I thought it was so funny. They had lots of big names from Xbox there. They actually didn't have Larry Herb, Major Nelson, which was great. They had Aaron Greenberg. They had Mike Ybarra. They had a couple of others that I can't remember the woman's name off the top of my head, but she's head of first party publishing and things like that. And then they did this like 3-minute long trailer for Recore, the definitive edition, which we already knew was coming. It had been leaked in advance. Everything from this, really, mostly everything had been leaked. And it basically, yeah, it's going to be extra content, extra story. I think some of the bots that were cut from the game before release are going to be back in. They're going to add it back in, and it's going to be free if you already own it, and it's going to be part of Game Pass as well this coming month. So I think that's cool. They're really putting some support into that game. That game is fine. That is a fine budget game, like mid-tier game. Have you played it, Recall?
No, I haven't played it, and it appeals to me because, if I remember correctly, this is kind of the former Retro Studios or Factor 5 team or something. I can't remember. There was some.
Yeah.
When I first heard about this game, there was some appeal to it from developers who had moved to the studio from a previous one, or the creators of, or something like that.
Yeah.
Look it up to rekindle it in my memory. But this is kind of I've always wanted to play it. I've just never had the time really, or managed to fit it in. And this kind of almost brings it, gives it some new life for me. It's like, oh, a definitive edition. That's nice. The timing's going to be possibly quite convenient. So I think that this will be one that I pick up.
Let me quote from the last paragraph of Richard's review, in which he gave it 3 stars. Recall as a product feels like a metaphor for the principles of its game design. It's a glistening, multifaceted gem concealed within a dull and weathered shell. There's more, obviously, but I like, Richard writes really well, and I don't think I've ever quoted his stuff before on a podcast, and that felt right. But yeah, it's like 3 stars is fair for where that game was, and I believe I've heard the definitive edition is going to be at a budget price point anyway, and like considering this is going to be an upgrade for the people that have already owned the game, that's the right way to handle that. Well done, Xbox. That's absolutely fine. There's going to be a light mode for the awful new Xbox dashboard. I really can't stress how bad this thing is right now. I know I'm an alpha tester. I know. And things are going to get better, and but man, it crashes constantly. It is not responsive. I have had to do hard reboots of my console on multiple occasions now. It is a complete shitstorm. And when you had Mike Ybarra on there talking about the feedback, and they even alluded to all the feedback they've been getting from the insiders, but not in a negative way. I do hope they're not just sticking their heads in their hand, like in the sand, and ignoring how many problems there are with this current dashboard. Making it a light design. I thought it looked nice, actually. I would definitely try that out. I think that was a nice change for Xbox, which has always been very dark. But yeah, it's just, fix the problems first, guys. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Ouch. Yeah, didn't realize you were having that much bad problems. I know they've.
It's actually got worse. It's got worse.
Really?
They were talking about customizing the home screen where you can add the different content boxes, and I remember me telling you guys about that on Bits and Bobs last week. With the current update of the Dash, you can no longer remove any content boxes. So you can add stuff, but you can't delete any. So it's. I know I'm an alpha tester. Obviously, that's going to get fixed. Obviously. But this is the earliest I've ever seen this. I feel like they're moving at speed because they need it ready for the X. Things need to be in place for the X. So fingers crossed they'll get there. Talking about hardware though, I really like the look of that Minecraft console. I'm not a massive Minecraft player, but I thought that was designed very well. I don't know what you thought, Joel.
I didn't think too much of it, to be honest. In a sense, yeah, it's cool and things, but for me, I've already got an S, so yeah. It was kind of like, I'm not going to buy another one. All these kind of limited editions are cool and stuff, but yeah, I mean, it looks kind of cute. I think
it looks great. I'm not going to buy
children
it.
Loving it, but yeah,
I wasn't going to buy it, but I thought the actual design of it was one of the sort of bolder looks that they've ever done for a custom Xbox. I thought it was creative. It fit very well with the universe. The fact that they did make it look like the grass block with the redstone on the back, that it lights up, that there's a see-through element to it. First time on an Xbox One console that they've gone for see-through, and I don't think they even did that on the 360 era at all either. And the custom sounds and all that. I love all that. I just think I thought it looked very well done.
It kind of reminded me a bit of the kind of, the how can you remember that Pikachu N64 that was considerably different in its design? It's kind of bold a bit in that sort of sense, I would say.
Is that the last time? Is that the last era of gaming where you would have considered buying a special edition console like that?
I've never bought a special edition. Sorry, actually, I guess that's technically a lie. My PlayStation 4, the first one I owned, I bought the Destiny White one. So it was bundled with Destiny, launched as a sort of limited Destiny one, but it was later released just as a standard color. But there's nothing Destiny specific about it. It's just white. That's the only difference. But yeah, other than that, I've never bought a limited / special edition console. Certainly not one tied in with the game.
Now you mention it, I'm trying to think if I have, and I'm not sure I have either. Actually, to be honest, now you mention it, I've never liked that either. I don't like hardware to be, you know, too stood out, I suppose. I like a nice sleek white or black box that will just sit, you know, under my TV. That's all I need. Right, and then I think the final thing that popped up at the end there was Surviving Mars. Yet another sci-fi colony management game that's now obviously that was an announcement that it was coming to the Xbox as well. I believe that's what that was. Actually, now you mention it, it might not have been. It might have just been a Windows thing. But the thing with that, the one thing that makes me interested in that, because we've already got Aven Colony and we've already got Planet Base, which are both really good, and Aven Colony is actually fantastic. The Surviving Mars is developed by Paradox, who are the famous sort of like hardcore, deep as fuck strategy game developer and publisher out there. You know, Europa Universals, I want to say Hearts of Iron as well was them. Lots of really heavy sim stuff. And the reason they show that on their stream from Gamescom is the market in Germany for those types of games is incredible. That is the bread and butter for where those kind of games make their money. Is Germany. Weirdly, for whatever reason, they love that. Excuse me if you can hear weird noises. My cats are chasing each other around my chair right now, like crazy animals. Did you give a crap about Surviving Mars, Joel?
Not well. All these things I find curious, but like you say, it feels there's been a lot of games released that kind of cover these topics and in this genre kind of thing, and it's is it going to be? I guess the question is going to be when it comes. Is it going to be anything special? What's it going to do different above and beyond the those that have come before it, those that are already well established, or is it just going to be another of those games? If you know what I mean. So that's. I don't want to write it off initially, but it's going to have to do something a bit special to stand out against the others in the crowd, per se.
No, that's fair enough. So I've just realised why my cats are chasing each other. They brought something in.
They brought you a present.
They brought me a present, and I think it's alive and running around my feet. So this is live podcasting, baby. Oh yeah, bringing it to you live at 10 o'clock. I don't know what's going on. So what was your general impression then? Your general thoughts on this Gamescom thing? Obviously, the ending. We should probably mention where it ended. It just felt like we'd known about this for the last few days, so it wasn't really a surprise. Project Scorpio version of the Xbox One X is this version that's going to be like the launch edition of it. It's got some green text of Project Scorpio on it, and it's got like a different finish to the hardware, and there's some text on the controller. And that's about it, really, from what I can tell.
You get a free vertical stand as well,
like I did with my Launch S. I got that with my Launch S as well. Yeah, so they're actually really handy. That's how I'll probably have my Xbox One X stood up as well. But yeah, it's out now for pre-order. I've placed mine already.
Yeah, good. I placed mine as well.
Straight on Amazon.
Yeah, the only thing that annoys me is that I couldn't order a standard edition one yet. You have to get the, so if you want one for launch, you have to go for the Project Scorpio one. Now, I do think as limited edition consoles designs go, it's quite unobtrusive kind of thing. It's kind of subtle. It's not too bad. So yeah, I'm going to see if they allow you to pre-order a standard edition at some point between now and launch. I might well switch my pre-order.
Yeah.
Or are you just double checking now?
No. I was just messaging the wife. Please come and help with mouse situation. I'm a bit busy. But that's all I was doing. But no. I like the. Do you not like the Scorpio edition? I kind of like these limited console launch things. The only thing they did with the Xbox One originally was that achievement. I think there was something on the controller as well, from what I remember. But I got rid of that controller many moons ago because guess what? A launch controller for the new hardware, it wasn't great, and it ended up breaking and getting kind of shitty pretty quick. Actually, from what I remember having to buy the white controller very early on. But yeah, I like the look of that. I like that the text on the console Maybe not so much how they've done it on the controller. I find the vertical text on the thing a bit frustrating. It should put it horizontal or something. I don't know. I also reminded myself watching that stream, I really need to get myself sorted out with a custom design lab controller. Just because I want to own one. I'm never going to use it, but I would just like to make myself one and have it, because I like my Xbox controller.
Yeah, I do think that's the service they offer there is really cool. Actually, the only reason I've not done it, I've got 3 controllers already, and when I get the X, I'll have 4. I won't have any need. And I think if I was to do it, I would probably want to be able to do it on the Elite controller, maybe, which I don't actually own yet. The cat sparring is getting quite serious now. By the look.
It's not sparring, it's chasing a mouse.
Surely your cat should have got this by now.
No, she's just, my wife's come down to help, and then the mouse is now, this is so funny doing this shit live. It's so funny. Just been chased out by the cat, and it's gone running past her, and she just screamed. And this is the funniest shit. Trying to talk video games while this is going on is amazing. Thanks, cats. Cats are great. I love cats, but they are, they do cause problems with this sort of stuff sometimes, don't they? Have you got cats? I can't remember if you have.
No. The only pet I have is a rabbit.
Well, at least you said that and not your child. I thought that might be where you were going with that. Right. So, back on topic. Yeah, so that was the end of the sort of the Xbox thing. It was quite unnecessary, wasn't it? It was just sort of like, let's recap a lot of E3 stuff. Let's show just a lot of the same trailers and the same sort of sizzle reels. You know, they trotted out Cuphead, they trotted out State of Decay 2. I guess PUBG. I'm really excited about PUBG, or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I've watched so much video of that now. I am hyped as crap to play that on Xbox. I'm so hyped. However, like, you know, no date. Nothing like that was announced. They've got a tighter partnership with Microsoft in place now, which means it's going to probably have a really good development pipeline. It should appear sooner, should be more optimized, and hopefully means it can be iterated upon quicker when the feedback comes in. And you know, they want parity between the PC and the Xbox, and I would think they will want crossplay. From what, you know, I was sort of inferring from the way they were talking about it, that, you know, if they're going to have that sort of a partnership, maybe that means PC and Xbox are going to be able to play against each other. An element that Sea of Thieves hit home as well in the stream, wasn't it? They're like, they're making a point saying the Windows 10 version and the Xbox One version of Sea of Thieves will be completely compatible together. And I've been doing stuff with that for a while now. I can't talk about it, signed NDAs, but it's definitely something to be excited about, Sea of Thieves, and keep an eye on. But yeah, lots of stuff there. Anything you wanted to add?
No, I think I shared the same sentiments. It was very much, it felt, you know, yeah, it felt very kind of similar, a rehash of E3, maybe concentrating on a few moot points. They slotted in a little bit of new footage here and there. Obviously, a couple of announcements, Recore and things, but nothing, most of the stuff had leaked already. Nothing seemed new, felt new. Yeah, I think they could have probably just opened with like, yeah, here we are, here's some, you know, footage, and yeah, you can pre-order the X now. They really worked hard on emphasizing the 4K. I suppose there was the Major Nelson bit with we actually unboxed the console for you and sort of went through all the bits and stuff like that. These unboxing videos are getting really weirdly popular these days.
That bit with the unboxing made me laugh, because you can tell they were like, all right, we want to unbox the console. And it might have been Larry himself, it could have been someone else, but hey, anybody got a pair of white gloves? That'll make it look like really special and official and stuff. So he then wears these like really ill-fitting looking white gloves that look completely unsuitable for what he was trying to do, and they were all like baggy and stuff. Like, yeah, guys, you should have gone without the gloves. That was weird, but that's all that stood out for me. I mean, it's a really sleek-looking piece of hardware, but it is just a black box. So, you know, it's not like unboxing the Switch, which is unique and different and innovative, you know, in its design and its implementation. You know, this is just a very powerful piece of hardware that's going to sit under my TV, and for all intents and purposes, I'm going to forget about. You know, it's the games and the user experience, which is what will be the lasting effect, isn't it? So that's all that matters, really. You know, so I brought up, I haven't actually looked at this list, but I've got the current game list of enhanced games. They announced a few.
There's 100 on the list now.
There is 100, and I'm just going to flick through any of them that stand out, like older stuff that's worth mentioning. Well, Chess Ultra, that's going to be enhanced.
No way.
Yeah, Chess Ultra, guys.
4K HDR.
hilariously Conan Exiles, which I guess I should talk about actually, because I played that this week. My early look of that is on the site. That is the earliest game preview game I have played yet. That game is fucked, like almost unplayable in its current state. I know they're waiting for a patch to get through cert right now, but basically the server problems mean you can't really play online. The sort of lag issues mean you can't really play offline. Everything feels horribly delayed. Like combat feedback is very odd. Sound effects rarely trigger or activate at the right moment. They've integrated this new kind of weapon wheel system, like a quick selection system for the consoles, but it lags and only works about half the time. So you'll try and slot something, it works about half the time. You try and select something from the wheel, it works about half the time. So it's incredibly inconsistent. And like, it just feels so early for this game to be out. Like, and they're asking 30 quid for it in game preview. However, you look at this and go, this will be really good fun. I really like the world. I can see where it's going, and I just hope they put the work and the time in at the developers to make, really polish it up and make it a fun experience, because damn, it just feels super early. But I want it to be good. I really like the idea of it. The Conan world as a multiplayer survival kind of game is perfect, really. But yeah, it just needs a shit ton of work. But yeah, that's going to be enhanced. So yay.
It's still in early access on PC. And
no, it is. Yeah,
it's still holding mostly negative reviews on Steam. I'm just looking at it at the moment. I was going to say, this is one where you start and you're basically naked, isn't it? Like that's the kind of the big headline I can remember about this game.
The big talking point on PC was there was a dong slider, so you could change the size of your penis, or if you're playing as the ladies, you can change the massive size of your boobies. And it was all very naked. However, on console, they've had to change that. I've heard there's a patch where you will be able to do it like fully naked, but I haven't seen that and I couldn't find that. However, there is clothed or partial nudity options now on the console. And interestingly, I couldn't capture any footage for the partial nudity because it's literally, because I use the game DVR function to capture footage, it's blocked. You aren't allowed to do that. So I had to set my server to fully clothed so that I could capture the footage. And to be honest, like once you've looked at it and gone, his penis, boobies, and then it's like 2 seconds later, you're like, oh, whatever. That doesn't really add or subtract anything from this game. Like, it's completely irrelevant. So who cares?
That's nice to hear, because I can't recall hearing actually anything about the game other than that. That is what the big topics of this conversation that I recall about it were, that literally it's just like, oh yeah, this game, you start off naked and you can be naked. And then everything seemed to focus around that. Not that I purposely went reading much about it, to be honest, but that's from my limited knowledge what I know.
I think there's a lot of potential. I'm not just saying that because, I don't know, I got a code for it or whatever. I honestly do. I mean, when I saw Cameron's footage of it in February when he looked at it on PC, I immediately was like, oh, I'm excited to play that on Xbox. That's something I want to play. However, I expected it to be a more stable release. I mean, I know it's going in game preview and stuff, but I just thought it would be like basic functionality playable. As things are right now, it is incredibly unstable. So yeah, fingers crossed they start getting sorted on that. I'm going to come back to it. I'm definitely going to look at it again, as it progresses. Looking through the list. Anything else? Dishonored 2, which is, I guess, is good. F1 2017.
Oh, that's good.
Should we talk about that? Right.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about it. I want to know. I want to hear about this. I'm excited.
There's interestingly, the reason this episode of Bonus Babble has been recorded at 10 o'clock at night and is going to be going up around midday on the following Monday is because that's when the embargo is set for F1 2017. I haven't been able to capture footage for this yet because of some technical reasons on the Xbox, but besides that point, there will be a full review coming. But me and Joel, I think we've mentioned this before, me and Joel are massive F1 fans. Hugely into the sport. We love it. And last year's F1 2016 was I thought a really good version of the game. that they've been making yearly for quite some time now. Much better than 2015, which was very sort of threadbare and a bit minimal. Lots of features like the career mode added in again into 2016. And what they've done with 2017 is they have taken that foundation and they have built on it to a degree. I mean, it's not a huge evolutionary step here with 2017. Everything is just tweaked. I actually like the driving better. I think not because of the game's changes, but because of the cars. I actually like how this year's Formula One cars handle on the track a lot more than I did last year's, because mechanical grip is much better, and you can feel that in the driving experience when you're playing it on the Xbox. And you can genuinely feel like you're adhering to the track, much less slippery, much less sort of feeling like you're on ice sometimes like you were in 2016. This feels just a better driving experience. And I would imagine that reflects what it's like for the drivers for real, you know, that the cars do have a better sensation on the track. You know, things feel faster this year. Again, a reflection of the actual sport. And it is a damn good simulation of the sport. I mean, it feels... It's so funny. I love the things like I was watching the trailer for Forza Motorsport 7. I'm like, yeah, that looks stunning. But the problem is I went back to play a Forza game after playing loads of 2016 last year, and it just feels slow. You know, I love a driving game, but compare it to Formula One. Every other driving game feels slow. Like the sense of speed in F1 2017 is incredible, just like it was last year. And it looks good. It doesn't look amazing. Like the cars look great. The scenery is kind of a bit like, whatever, who cares anyway? That's not why I'm playing this. If you're spending time looking at the fucking grandstands when you should be looking at the track, I don't really know what you're doing in this game, because you've got so many things to be thinking about as you're driving anyway. Like, you know, your line, your braking, your tire management. There's actually some new mechanical elements as well I'll get to in a second. Your fuel management. You're thinking about your pit strategy. And then now you've got things like they've added into the career mode. You know how we've got like different gearboxes in the real sport and different engine components, and how their durability works, like will lessen over several races. That's been brought into the game.
Right.
So you actually have to think about component use. You have to, and then that kind of couples into the R&D element that was sort of in the previous iteration a little bit, but they've got it's like a full on now. It's like a full on, like, you know, a 4X game tech tree. That's what the R&D screen looks like. This huge selection of icons, and it's broken into 4 categories. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but it's basically like aero, engine components, things like that. And you then research, and the career mode is actually developed sort of to span. Sorry, I'm distracted by the wife telling me about a mouse. I'll get to that later. But it's this sort of designed, to span 10 years. So, you know, you're not going to necessarily do everything in one season. You've got, I mean, there was the 10-year season, I think, in the previous game, but having this sort of this deeper level of tech innovation that's been brought into this new version means that you're more likely, and you're more likely to stick with that career, and you're more likely to sort of invest into the R&D and to your character's progressions. You know, the rivalries things in there. I played Red Bull. I've gone in the Red Bull team, just to let you guys. I didn't want to be Mercs and Ferrari, but I wanted to be like in contention. You know, I didn't want to necessarily be, you know, struggling just for a point. I like being potentially on the podium.
How when you start your career and you pick your team, are the cars actually are there sort of stats per se actually realistically reflective of the actual current state of play? So if you were to decide you wanted to start in a McLaren Honda, which we all know is shit. Is your best real hope to get like 10th or 9th place, basically? Yeah. So I mean, there is a degree that yes and no, right? If you play this game on super easy, I imagine you could win a race as a McLaren, right? Even with the starting deficit in actual car ability, because you're going to be playing against morons, right? If you play it on a relatively medium to hard setting, you know, you can definitely feel the challenges there, because the cars further down the midfield and the bottom, like McLarens, they're just not as good. So you're never going to be on the podium. You're probably, unless it's a wet race and crazy shit happens, which is something that does happen in this game as well. It simulates all of that. But no, you're going to be fighting for a point. You're going to be fighting
you know, for that sort of thing. And you're gonna have a different experience in the game, because then it all becomes about your rivalries. Then it all becomes about, you have different team goals depending on the team you play as, and depending on the performance that you've shown at that point. So, for example, I started it, like I said, in Red Bull. Up again, I just chose to have Max rather than Danny Rick as my teammate. So my first rivalry is against Max, and basically my objectives are just to perform better than Max, because I'm currently the second driver. I want to become the first driver, you know. And then it's like, so beyond that, getting decent points, decent championship results, getting podiums. That's almost a secondary objective. The main objective is this kind of like these smaller goals. So yeah, because the career is spanned over 10 years, maybe you do start in McLaren, and you do okay, and then you go up to a better team. Maybe you get an offer from Sauber, or maybe you get an offer from Force India, and you decide to move up until maybe in year 6 or 7 you're driving for Mercedes, you know, and then you can try for the championship. And that's a lot. Don't get me wrong, that is a lot of investment, right? So each season is 22 races, right? And in career mode, you can choose this, right? You can have everything from a 5-lap. I think it's like as little as a 5-lap race for the main race, or maybe it's a 25%, or I'm not sure. But you can basically just do one-shot qualifying and minimal free practice, right? I'm sort of choosing in the middle area. So you've got each race weekend consists of the 3 practice sessions, qualifying, and the race. And in the practice sessions, you're doing things to like, did you play 2016, Joel?
No, not 2016. I think the last time I played is...
2016 was very good. But yeah, they introduced this thing in free practice where you... that's where the development of the car comes from. So you're doing, basically, you have these different types of objectives, like to do with tire management, to do with qualifying pace, things like that in free practice. And when you hit these objectives, or fuel management and stuff like that, you get research points. And those research points are then used in the R&D section to do, upgrade different components and do stuff at the factory, that kind of thing. It's kind of amusing because obviously the drivers are involved with the development of the car, but I think they put more of a weight on you doing that in this game than in reality, because it's this mixture of management sim and also driving game, which gives you more of an investment into the team you are in as well. And I think it works really well. I mean, it doesn't like you can just do, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? What do you recommend? Or if you're like me and you're really fascinated by all these elements of the sport, you can really dig into it and look at the stats and do the research and find all the little tweaks you can do to improve your car's performance and stuff like that. There is so much. What I like about these games is that you can play them very, very arcadey, or just even not arcadey, but you can play them surface level, or you can start to really dig in to the different sort of stats, because they are there if you want to look at them, but it doesn't force it down your throat. It doesn't make you do that stuff, which I think is a really nice thing. In addition to the career mode, there's the Grand Prix, where you can just play as a normal driver and pick any one of the tracks from the season. And there's some modifications you can do to that. For example, you can drive on tracks at night that would never have normally have a night version and stuff like that. You can do Monaco at night, for example, which I haven't tried yet, but I really want to. I'm really interested to see how that looks. Yeah, there's some tracks which you can do in reverse. There are some tracks that have shortened versions. And then there's time trials. There's a multiplayer suite, obviously. The usual things you'd expect from a driving game. This year, however, the big thing they've done in 2017, the thing they're using to market it, the thing they're using to sort of say, this wasn't in last year's game, are the classic cars. So you can drive in a selection of Formula One cars from the sort of the modern classic era, I would say, rather than like the 50s. I'm talking about the modern recognizable Formula One cars. So the McLaren MP4, various different McLarens, different Williams cars from that, when, the era of Mansell's Williams, that sort of things like that. Classic Ferraris, like, Schumacher's Ferrari from the years he was basically dominating the sport. And then in those races, in those challenges, they are actually, there's 2 ways you can play them. You can either just go and play those in like, whatever, pick up and play arcade game, Grand Prix game, multiplayer. And they also incorporated them into the career mode, the main career mode, by doing like these invitationals that, your driver on an off weekend will go and do this thing for a bit of a PR stunt, get your publicity, get your profile up a bit, but you'll go and drive, one of the classic cars around a track and have to do with various challenges with it, pass X amount of cars or do this in the wet or things like that. So it's really, it adds a lot of variety, and it's cool playing in these cars, man. They've got like They sound different. They feel different. Obviously, they look different. They handle completely differently, a lot of them. You know, it adds a bit of variety and a different type of challenge to the game as well. It's a fully featured package there. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention that's new this year, which is the events. So they're doing this thing in sort of multiplayer, which is like a leaderboard focused of thing, where they have this event where you have to compete globally against everybody else to do a certain challenge. And they change it every week. And this one was, I think it was at Spa. You're playing as Max. You've just lost your nose cone. You have to pit, get out. It starts to rain, and then you need to win the race. And it's like quite specific modifiers on specific tracks with specific drivers and specific challenges. And then it's like
little scenarios, basically.
Yeah, and then it scores you, and then you can see how you've done against, you know, the global leaderboard, your friends leaderboard, and things like that.
That's brilliant. I've not seen that since F1 World Grand Prix on the N64. Had a scenarios mode where they picked up on some of the you know, famous moments of the past seasons where things had happened. And like, I'll give you an example. There's one where I think Damon Hill was driving an Arrows car and he was in the lead, and then his gearbox started failing in the last few laps and losing gears. I think he eventually finished second, but the scenario in this game was to see if you could do better than him and finish first with a failing gearbox, which basically meant looking in your rearview mirror and just driving everywhere the car behind you was trying to get past you, ramming it off the road where you could to try.
So now you mention it quite a lot like Max Verstappen.
Yeah. Perhaps
very similar.
Yeah, very aggressive defense, basically. But yeah, that was one of the best parts of that game. Just trying to take on those challenges and things. So
yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, you know, I'm trying to check this thing out where I'm currently like 3rd on the global leaderboard because there's been like 8 people play it. So it's like, yeah, that doesn't reflect how good I am at all. Trust me, no way. But yeah, last year's was very good. This isn't a quantum leap. It is a refinement. There's some expansion in certain areas, but there's certainly nothing worse this year. You know, whereas like 2015's was definitely a bad one. It was definitely short on things because they wanted it out on the new generation of consoles. You know, this is a between year one. I think maybe next year will be the more of a jump forward. But the main thing for me is that the driving experience is better, not because of the game, but because of the cars in reality. And it is it's a more fun game to play because of that, which is great. You know, that's an accurate representation of the sport. And nobody does racing game sims better than Cody's right now. They are absolutely killing it. And you know, I know famously this F1 team is a small developer team, right? It's not the main Cody's team. There's not a lot of people working on it, but by golly, you can see the passion, you can see the love, and yeah, man, you should get this year. I think you should really pick it up. I think we could have some fun playing the races before the race comes on TV or something. Yeah, we should have a go and stuff. Yeah, it'd be good. Right. There'll be a full review of that, hopefully by the end of the week. So the other game, I'm curious if you've got any questions about this as well, because there's been a lot of coverage. And it turns out, Agents of Mayhem. My review went up as the embargo lifted. So, you know, in a rare case, I've had a couple of games here early, which has been great. You know, I really appreciate the support from publishers, etc. And it was curious to see the split in reviews for this game. Everything from like 4s out of 10s or the equivalent up to like 8 or 9s out of 10s. And my score and my take on it was definitely towards the higher end. And I think, interestingly, reading some of these reviews, reading some of this coverage, I think that one of the big things that separates these reviews is the humor of this game, which I think, obviously, humor is incredibly subjective, right? You know, you either find a joke funny or you don't. You either like the tone of something or you don't. And I've noticed a lot of people don't like the tone of Agents of Mayhem. And I had a couple of issues with it, but on whole, I actually really like the characters. I really like the characterization of this game. And I like the setting. And I like this sort of 80s and 90s inspired, but adultified kind of cartoon setting. Almost like take G.I. Joe, take Mask, and then put it through Archer. And you've kind of got, and BoJack Horseman, and you've kind of got where they've volition have tried to go with Agents of Mayhem. So let me tell you what Agents of Mayhem is. Agents of Mayhem is an action shooter, straight up, made by the guys that made Saints Row, and you can tell that immediately. However, I didn't think it would stand on its own 2 feet. I thought this game would be something to tide people over until the next Saints Row came. But I really think they've done and created something here that works by itself. It's an interesting concept. You have this squad of 3 characters, but you can only ever play as one at any one time. You can switch between them. However, there is no multiplayer in a conventional sense in this game. And you know that is weird that there isn't, but what they have done with this gameplay, because you've got up to 12 different characters and you can have any 3 at one time and you can switch between them, that means you have a huge amount of variety when it comes to gameplay, about how these all characters will feel very different. It's kind of almost like they've gone to the design school of Overwatch, and they've looked at, well, what do everybody in Overwatch do? Well, they all shoot things, right? They've all got a gun of some kind, pretty much, a projectile, something that will, you know, project their force in front of them or away from them, right? And that's what they've gone and done here in Agents of Mayhem. And you know, the same amount of varieties you see in the Overwatch characters you've got in Agents of Mayhem. You've got huge amounts. You've got everything from melee characters, which are up close and personal, but you know, you can do some kind of projectile and projecting their force in front of them with a sword slash, etc., all the way up to guys with machine guns and sniper rifles and things like that. And then you've got I was super impressed. It's weird, actually. There's some tonal problems in this game, but what they get really right are the female characters. None of them feel cliche. None of them feel like bimbo-fied or like sexual objects. They all feel rounded. They all feel interesting. They're funny. They're well written. Many of the major sort of NPC characters in this game, quest givers and support cast, they're all women as well. And it's incredibly pro-female in its attitudes. There are a couple of really interesting, well-rounded queer relationships in here, and they don't try and ram it down your throat, and like try and like sexualize it in any way. I was really impressed with all that. I mean, the other big detractor from this game is that people say it gets repetitive, right? That's what people have been saying, and I have trouble with that, because this is an open world game, and aren't they all sort of inherently repetitive? Do you know what I mean? It's like you kind of, in an open world game, you end up you're jumping around, you're shooting things, you're doing these side quests, you know, and everything of that is in Agents of Mayhem. But what sets an open world game apart is the wrapper, isn't it? It's the worlds, it's the narrative, it's the setting. And I think, you know, Agents of Mayhem is fun and engaging, and some people didn't like it, and I understand that. However, I don't necessarily think that should detract from the review completely. It's tricky. I enjoyed my time, and that's all I can say at the end of the day. I will tell the story I told in my review, Joel, because I'll be curious to get your thought on it. There was some very strange dialogue in this game. At one point, I'm doing one of the like loyalty missions, which is what you do to recruit characters, and they're really, really good fun. They're all different for each of the characters, and it's actually reminiscent of Mass Effect 2's loyalty missions. And these are things you have to do to get them to join your team, and then you can use them to swap in and out as different agents. And in this mission, the bad guy is on the phone on your comms device talking to you, and he says to you something along the lines of, if you don't do what I want, I'm going to jump in a car and I'm going to run over loads of civilians. And I just sort of paused the game at that point. And this was before the recent awful attack, right? It was before what's just happened in Spain. And I just paused it and went, guys, you probably shouldn't have let that bit of incidental dialogue in. Like, what were you thinking? You know, you may have written that and recorded that 2 years ago before everything kicked off. But, you know, the games are a living thing now. I hope they patch it out. I just sort of sat there and went, that's really awkward. I don't think I'm offended, because I can see what you're trying to do, and I can see the setting of the game, and I know it's set in, you know, there's a humorous tone to it. But oh boy, I had that feeling, you know what I mean, Joel? It's oh no, I don't like it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's what exactly. That's what it makes me think of, and it's like, I feel for the developers, perhaps, like you say, this was, you know, it relates to a very recent. I say recent as it
a spate
like
of
past year, a spate of it's a sort of new form of terrorist attack, per se, the trending form of attack at the moment. It's a bit hard, because one idea there's in reality we've got this situation where some people are hiring cars or taking cars and using them as weapons and stuff. But then I think when I play Grand Theft Auto, how often I actually, go up on the pavement just to get around traffic and end up running over people and don't really think about it. I guess it's just what the developer's intent was, and yeah, that alongside some bad timing means that maybe it's it's not the best piece of dialogue in the game. But I have no. How big is the game? How much dialogue is there in it? Is this
Loads.
something? This someone may just not have thought about this, or
it's
or realize this. If this is something that's been in the game since a long time during development,
actually the dialogue is one of the most impressive things in a way, because so you have 12 different team members, right, which you can switch into your party of 3 whenever you go back to your home base, and then when you're out in the world you can have any one of those 3 active, and depending on which one of those 3 is active, they will talk to the quest giver who is talking to them. They will reply with bespoke dialogue. Right? So if you think about the amount of permutations of recorded dialogue, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's insane. That is, wow, like shockingly large amount of dialogue. And I love the characters in this game. And like I said, I love the representation of the women throughout this game. There's so much fun. They're so well written. Braddock comes to mind. Braddock is this female version of the cigar chewing Sarge character. And she's brilliant, and I love her. And she's got a cool pulse rifle. And then there's Betsy, who is this sort of like cyborg-enhanced roller derby chick who has a minigun. And she's amazing. Like, there's just so much cool character design in this. And the open world is interesting because you can see where they didn't have as much resources in development as maybe they did in Saints Row, because the open world is actually quite small. I thought it was just going to be the opening area of the open world, you know what I mean? Like, and then it'll expand out and there'll be more. And it didn't. But what they do instead is they kind of recycle events within it. So, you have these outposts, you capture them from the bad guys Legion, because you're Agents of Mayhem and you're against Legion. And then at some point, pretty randomly, Legion will take them back. And then you need to capture them again. So I can kind of see that's where people are talking about repetition. But for me, like, yeah, you're reusing that location multiple times because you haven't got the resources to make a bigger open world. However, the gunplay and the fact that you can just go in and you can play that as a completely different set of characters. There's also a massive variety in difficulty settings, like almost like, Diablo 3's torment settings. It's like that. So you have a huge array of different settings. So you can just make it harder and harder and harder. But the harder you make it, the more XP and the more bigger rewards you get. So it encourages you to challenge yourself and to push and to level up your characters. Your characters can level up, I think, to 50 each. I think it's something like that. It's ridiculous. There's so much, like, there are systems on systems and abilities and attributes and unlockables and tech and loads of little things in there to do. Like, there's loads of really good little ideas, and I really like how the systems interplay with each other, and how sometimes you have to make a choice one way or the other, and you have to sort of decide on all these different RPG elements. I enjoy my time with Agents of Mayhem. I think it's a bit of a big ask at 50 quid, but that I can see the value proposition putting people off a little bit. But do you know what else blew me away? It's got these brilliant sort of like 2D animated cutscenes, and like that's how they do all the story, and they're really, really cool and really well drawn and acted and performed, and they're funny, and they get the setting that they're going for so well. And then it's got like these major boss fights, which are also intercut with these cutscenes, but they're all multi-stage boss fights, really inventive boss fights, actually, that have the characters use different powers, and they change and evolve the fight, and a real challenge that you have to think about how you're dealing with that enemy at that time. So I think there's loads of good stuff in Agents of Mayhem. I really do. Any other thoughts or any other questions about it, Joel?
No, not a serious question. I've just been looking at some videos in the background whilst we've been talking about it. I can see what you mean about the cutscenes. They do look really good.
Yeah, as somebody who loves his cartoons of that era, you can see.
Really nice. I love it when people go to that sort of nice effort to sort of give something a hand-drawn touch, per se. That's really nice. If you found it fun, then sure, why not? That's what your review's about. What did you think of it? As a critic, I like this game, hence I'll give it. And sometimes it's quite nice when games kind of divide the critics as well. because it creates some really interesting discussion points and stuff. And like you say, it may just be a case of the dialogue narrative and the characters are a bit Marmite. So some people will like them, some people won't, depending on their personal tastes. But
I mean,
stick to your guns.
Yeah, I will. And in addition to that, I enjoyed the gameplay. It's the combat, the mobility of the characters in the world. All of that felt great, if not like revolutionary. It all felt very solid and enjoyable and consistent. After playing something like Conan Exiles, consistency goes a long way, John. A game that just works deserves a little bit of praise, it would seem, in this day and age, where half the games that come out in early access and game preview and shit like that, they just don't. So, I like games that work. Yeah. Am I giving that? Am I being too?
No, I appreciate that. Games that don't have to sort of, that seemingly have glaring problems that you can't believe weren't picked up during the kind of latter testing phases are still released, and then sort of under community pressure patched over the next couple of months to make them what they should be. But the reality is, well, at least for me, is that most of the time I get a game, if it's a game I get it near around release, I'll play it, and then I won't go back to it again after. It's very rare that I ever really go back and play some games again and again and again. So I always miss that window of patched opportunity to play the game, perhaps as in its fixed state. But,
yeah, I know what you mean. I try and make a point of it nowadays. It's like I try and keep up to date with I'll try and keep up to date with Conan Exiles and stuff like that, just because games that are actively being released in early stages, they deserve another look. When they're either released or much further into the development cycle or something like that. But it's an interesting.
That's a really interesting one when you think about it, though. Okay, so it's still in early access on the PC, and they're bringing it into early access on another platform. It kind of leaves me conflicted about where should your priorities be, and I'm not saying I believe it should be this way or the other, but should they get it fixed on one platform first before they port it, or should they? Are they right to try and hedge their bets? I don't know.
Well, I tell you, the weirdest example of this right now is Fortnite. Fortnite that has boxed copies available to buy in shops, and yet is an early access game.
Jeez.
So when you buy this game, you're walking into a shop and you're buying a game that isn't finished at a full priced sort of RRP.
What's in the box? Like a pressed disc still? Like that you take home?
I suspect it'll be just a code, but
an IOU.
It's weird though, isn't it? That's
incredible. I've not. Yeah, I'm not sure what to say about that.
And then the other peculiar example was Ark, right? The game Ark,
Survival Evolved, I think. Yeah.
So Ark comes out. It's still in early access, and yet they've released an expansion pack for it, which you have to buy.
I heard about this one. That had the community up in a bit of uproar. And I kind of rightly agree. Although the developers seemed was stern to defend that it wasn't resources working on the original games who did the DLC or vice versa. I can't remember. No, I think that was sort of the story that they pitched the other. But yeah, that's kind of wrong to me. And
it's weird, isn't it? It's weird. Well, are we just old, Joel? Are we old and stuck to our old kind of sensibilities of how games should be distributed and developed and published? I mean, the system's evolving. It's changing in front of our very eyes, and change is difficult.
Yeah, it's just a case of where it's going. In 10 or so years' time, is a finished product going to be the rare rather than the exception rather than the norm per se? Because how many games will release as early access, and then they'll grind away at it, but eventually the community or something will dither away, and they'll decide to move on to other things. They'll never bother finishing it off, and their argument will be that there's just not the player base to continue or warrant carrying it through to completion. It's kind of a sort of different way of dipping your toes in the waters to see if some ideas will work or stick. And then seeing which ones you should see through, as opposed to actually creating a finished product. I hope not. I actually believe that enough of the games that I play at the moment and things are actually, reasonably well polished and finished and then released. But yeah, interesting times.
Interesting times. And on that note, let's wrap this puppy up. I think that brings us the end to this slightly longer, impromptu, two-headed Bxb'S bonus at Babble episode 10 for the 21st of August. So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back next week with the bits and bobs, probably with Richard, but, you know, who knows. I think, Joel, you've got a game review or something coming, haven't you?
I am currently. I've even got it up at the moment. I was playing it, Halcyon 6 Lightspeed Edition.
Oh, yes, yes.
Which I'm about 8 hours into now. I'm really enjoying it so far. So, yeah, I look forward to talking a bit more about that next week.
Definitely. I look forward to hearing about it, because I only gave it to you reluctantly because I definitely wanted that one for myself, but I was just like, I don't have the time. And I know Richard's got what was it, like a fantasy set tactical RPG review coming, and I've heard some things about that, but I don't want to spoil it. So you'll see Richard's review soon. Glowing it shan't be. Okay. Check us out on iTunes. Give us a rating and a review. Go to the website, bxbgames.co.uk. For the love of God, give us some clicks. Not that it matters. We don't have any adverts because we don't believe in that. Yeah, YouTube, like, subscribe, do all of that shit. God, you know what you're doing at this point. So we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.